1988 wasn't just another year in music. It was the crossroads where glam excess, raw rebellion, and stadium-sized emotion collided. Rock wasn't background noise, it was everywhere. Radios blasted it in cars, stuck in traffic. MTV turned it into spectacle, and stadiums roared with fists raised high. 10 songs in particular didn't just soundtrack that year, they defined it. Some were born in heartbreak, others in chaos, and a few by accident, but all of them carved themselves into history. These aren't just songs, they're monuments to a year when rock felt untouchable. And outside the music, the world was changing. Ronald Reagan was finishing his final year in office. George H.W. Bush was preparing to take the White House. The Berlin Wall still stood, but cracks were showing. In fashion, neon colors and ripped jeans ruled. Hair was sprayed into defiance. Pop culture was exploding with movies like Die Hard and Rain Man, and Michael Jordan was rewriting basketball highlight reels. Rock was the heartbeat. In the middle of all this chaos, the soundtrack to a world on the edge of a new decade. Number 10. Love Bites. Def Leppard. By 1988, Def Leppard's hysteria had already become a monster. But buried among the anthems was a slow, aching ballad that nobody expected. Love Bites wasn't built on riffs or swagger. It was built on tension. Mutt Lange, the perfectionist producer known for pushing bands to the brink, layered countless vocal takes until the harmonies shimmered with an almost ghostly quality. It began as a country-tinged experiment, but transformed into something cinematic, something haunted. Steve Clark's guitar work here isn't flashy. It's surgical, letting silence speak louder than distortion. When the single hit number 1, fans were stunned. A band known for arena explosions had just topped the charts with vulnerability. Some critics mocked it as too soft, but fans proved them wrong, blasting it on car radios and slow dancing to it at proms. For Def Leppard, a band that had survived drummer Rick Allen's horrific car accident just a few years earlier, Love Bites was more than a hit. It was proof they could rise from tragedy and conquer the world. Meanwhile, in pop culture, romance was everywhere. Dirty Dancing had made Patrick Swayze a star just the year before, and love ballads were sneaking into rock playlists. Def Leppard had managed to fuse both worlds, hard rock and raw emotion, in one unforgettable track. Number 9. Bad Medicine. Bon Jovi. When Bon Jovi kicked off their New Jersey album with Bad Medicine, they weren't aiming for subtlety. They wanted a stadium anthem built to rattle bones. Bruce Fairbairn's production cranked everything to 11. Thunderous drums, Sambora's biting guitar tone, and a chorus designed for 50,000 voices. But the real twist came with the music video. Shot at LA's Whiskey A Go-Go, it wasn't slick or choreographed. Fans grabbed the cameras and filmed the chaos themselves. MTV couldn't get enough. By fall of '88, you couldn't escape the song. It was blaring from car stereos, mall speakers, and packed arenas. When it hit number 1, Bon Jovi weren't just another band from Jersey. They were the kings of mainstream rock. Backstage, though, tensions were already brewing. Constant touring had worn the band thin, and some insiders whispered about exhaustion and arguments. But to the public, Bon Jovi looked unstoppable. The smiling, leather-clad embodiment of late 80s rock. They were rock's clean-cut answer to the darker chaos of Guns N' Roses. And in the broader world, medicine itself was a hot-button issue. Conversations around health crises and new treatments were hitting headlines, making the metaphor of bad medicine even more charged than Bon Jovi probably intended. Number 8. Sweet Child O' Mine. Guns N' Roses. Some of rock's most iconic riffs weren't written. They were accidents. Slash was messing around, half joking, when the opening riff stumbled out of his guitar. Within minutes the band latched on, and Sweet Child O' Mine was born. Axl Rose pulled his lyrics straight from his relationship with Aaron Everly, writing lines that sounded more diary than poetry. But what began as personal turned universal. The track builds like a storm. Delicate verses, Slash's soaring solo, and then a crescendo that feels unstoppable. Recorded at Rumbo Recorders in LA, producer Mike Klink resisted the era's temptation to polish everything. He let it breathe. In a sea of glam bands covered in makeup and spandex, Guns N' Roses felt dangerous. Unpredictable. That danger was real. Backstage, fights, addictions, and late starts were the norm. Yet somehow, out of the chaos came brilliance. By the summer of '88, Sweet Child was the most requested song on rock radio. Suddenly, the Sunset Strip's most notorious outlaws were America's new obsession. On MTV, the band looked less like rock stars and more like street fighters, and teenagers saw them as the antidote to pop fluff. While Debbie Gibson and George Michael ruled the pop charts, Guns N' Roses stormed in with grit, reminding the world that rock could still bite. Number 7. Every rose has its thorn. Poison were the poster children of Hairspray and Neon Excess, until Bret Michaels picked up an acoustic guitar. Written after a late-night phone call that ended in heartbreak, Every Rose Has Its Thorn was stripped bare. No walls of distortion, no glitter, just vulnerability. Tom Werman, the producer, made one crucial decision: keep it simple. The rawness stayed in the mix, and that choice turned Poison from party boys into hit makers with depth. The track didn't just dominate rock radio, it crossed over, pulling in audiences who had never given glam rock a chance. Suddenly, Poison were being played on country stations, and the band was invited onto talk shows that once ignored them. Fans wept during live performances, lighters raised high. By the end of the year, it was their biggest hit, their signature ballad. Behind the makeup and excess, Poison had shown they were human after all. In the wider world, America was obsessed with heartbreak anthems. From Whitney Houston to Phil Collins, tender ballads ruled the charts. Poison had stumbled into a cultural sweet spot, capturing both rockers and romantics. Number 6. When It's Love. Van Halen. The David Lee Roth era had been brash, wild, and unpredictable. But with Sammy Hagar, Van Halen found something else: melody. When It's Love became the defining ballad of their new era, carried by Eddie's shimmering keyboard progression. Unlike their earlier guitar-first anthems, this was expansive, polished, almost cinematic. It wasn't about beer-soaked chaos, it was about reaching the heart. Fans were split. Purists cried betrayal, claiming Van Halen had gone soft, but arenas told a different story. Crowds roared every word, couples held each other, and radio couldn't stop spinning it. Behind the scenes, Eddie Van Halen was reveling in his ability to bend genres, proving he could make keyboards hit as hard as riffs. When It's Love didn't just chart, it declared the Van Hagar era wasn't a compromise. It was a rebirth. And in 1988, the rebirth theme was everywhere. From George Michael shedding his boy band image to the Soviet Union loosening its grip on the Cold War, the world was reinventing itself. Van Halen just happened to be doing it with power ballads. Number 5. Pour Some Sugar on Me. Leppard. If Love Bites showed Leppard's heart, Pour Some Sugar on Me showed their teeth. Born from a throwaway phrase Joe Elliott scribbled, the song built itself around swagger, not meaning. Mutt Lange's studio wizardry turned it into a monster. Layered guitars stacked like skyscrapers, drums engineered to sound like cannons. Vocals chanted more than sung. It wasn't subtle, it was pure seduction dressed as rock and roll. MTV played it relentlessly, and slowly the US fell under its spell. By the summer of '88, it was blasting from every car with the windows down, pushing hysteria into multi-platinum territory. On tour, fans screamed so loud during the chorus that Elliott sometimes stepped back from the mic, and the crowd carried it alone. 35 years later, it's still the track fans scream for first when Def Leppard hit the stage. In clubs, this song became the unofficial soundtrack of Friday nights, soundtracking everything from frat parties to strip clubs. It blurred the line between rock anthem and guilty pleasure, and maybe that's why it endures. Number 4. Angel, Aerosmith. Few bands have ever fallen as hard or risen as high as Aerosmith. By the mid-'80s, they were written off, their blues-driven chaos buried under years of excess. Then came the comeback. Angel wasn't just a ballad, it was proof they had survived. Steven Tyler, usually the wild preacher of sleaze, sang with restraint, almost whispering in the verses before unleashing everything in the chorus. Written with hitmaker Desmond Child, the track traded grit for polish, and it worked. The decision to collaborate with outside writers sparked debate. Was Aerosmith selling out? Critics questioned it, but fans didn't care. Concertgoers embraced the song, and MTV introduced the band to a whole new generation. Angel was more than a hit. It was a signal. Aerosmith weren't a relic. They were back, and ready to dominate another decade. Meanwhile, American pop culture was obsessed with comebacks, from Michael Jackson reclaiming the charts, to Sylvester Stallone reinventing himself with sequels. The 80s loved a second act. Aerosmith's Angel was their cinematic rebirth, and it worked perfectly with the times. Number 3. Born to Be My Baby, Bon Jovi. Where Bad Medicine was brash, Born to Be My Baby was stripped back, an anthem rooted in working-class optimism. The band originally recorded it acoustically, a raw version that still circulates among fans. But the label wanted something bigger, shinier. The final cut balanced both worlds. Tico Torres' steady beat, Richie Sambora's grit, and John Bon Jovi, delivering lyrics that were simple but timeless. The message? Love, struggle, survival, the stuff people could believe in. Released at the end of '88, it became one of their most played songs on both MTV and radio. For fans, it was a reminder that Bon Jovi weren't just about flash. They carried the voice of every young couple scraping by, and for the band, it proved lightning could strike twice after living on a prayer. At the same time, America was entering a new chapter of family values politics. Songs about loyalty, love, and commitment resonated more than ever. Bon Jovi managed to tap into that mood without losing their rock edge. Number 2. 1. Metallica. This was the moment. Metallica crossed over, not by softening, but by daring. Inspired by Dalton Trumbo's novel Johnny Got His Gun, 1 tells the story of a soldier trapped in his own body, alive but voiceless. The track opens with clean guitars, almost delicate, before descending into machine gun rhythms and Hetfield's anguished roar. Kirk Hammett's solo spirals like madness itself. It was cinematic, brutal, heartbreaking. For the first time, Metallica agreed to film a music video, a decision that shocked die-hard fans who saw videos as selling out. But the gamble worked. The black and white imagery fused with the song's horror, and suddenly, Metallica weren't just underground kings. They were a mainstream force. Some fans felt betrayed, others vindicated. Either way, history had shifted. Heavy music had proven it could be profound and commercially unstoppable. And culturally, this was the year Hollywood itself was obsessed with war stories. Platoon had won the Oscar in 1987. Full Metal Jacket had hit hard, and the echoes of Vietnam still haunted America. 1 captured that mood in sound. Pain, trauma, and fury, set to thrash. Number 1. Nothing But a Good Time, Poison. If Every Rose Has Its Thorn showed Poison's heart, Nothing But a Good Time showed their soul. This was glam rock, distilled, bright riffs, a chorus built for fists in the air, and lyrics that turned working-class frustration into joy. Recorded at Conway Studios in LA. With Tom Werman, it wasn't just loud, it was engineered to feel like a party. And it worked. For millions of fans, this wasn't escapism, it was release. On tour, Poison used this track as their nuclear weapon. Confetti cannons, pyrotechnics, and Bret Michaels swinging across the stage. Every night became a carnival. Critics scoffed, calling it shallow, but fans didn't care. For 3.5 minutes, it was freedom. Decades later, it still sounds like summer in the 80s. Carefree, defiant, and immortal. Meanwhile, in malls across America, kids were buying ripped jeans, leather jackets, and mirrored sunglasses, trying to look like Bret Michaels. Poison weren't just selling music, they were selling lifestyle. And in 1988, that lifestyle was irresistible. 1988 wasn't subtle, it was big hair, big riffs, and even bigger emotions. These 10 songs capture a year where rock was larger than life, but also deeply human. Behind every chorus was heartbreak, ambition, or survival. Some of these bands would crash in the years ahead, others would reinvent themselves. But together, these songs form a time capsule. Turn them up today, and you're not just hearing music, you're hearing a year when rock ruled the world. And beyond the music, you're hearing echoes of a culture on the cusp of change. When Cold War tensions simmered, neon ruled fashion, MTV shaped the world's taste, and rock was the loudest voice in the room. 1988 was a time when legends weren't just made, they were lived,